and I'm going to say it so Mandy isn't disappointed.
Mhm.
We are live.
Actually, I'm not. I died about a month ago, but I came back because this show is that important to me.
Because the Scarlet Witch brought you back
Hey, if she can bring Vision back,
with
why
the
not me?
with the her mutant powers.
Mhm.
So we I can't even remember everything I talked about last week. I know I missed some stuff that I wanted to talk about last week. One of the things that I kept kicking myself is I don't think I talked about the helicopter in the bushes.
Which I made a mistake on. I said that it had the Stark logo. It has the sword logo. It has the
Okay.
Iron Man colors, which are very important.
Right. So
but it had the sword logo.
So we hit on it, but I never went into talking about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So how did that get there? Well, I think we kind of got an answer this past week.
Right.
Apparently they are, up till now, we've wondered, is this a pocket universe? Is this I had kind of put forward the idea that this might be a matrix type or a framework type projection reality, and it turns out it looks like this is in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a situation like other shows where we have a sphere over the town. And who's generating? Now, there are a lot of questions. Who's generating this fear? But my guess is that Wanda must have something to do with that, because I think that was a real helicopter that hit her hex field.
Ooh, interesting.
And landed in her bushes.
Interesting.
Don't know. Could be. It might just be a toy. It might just be a plant. It might just be somebody trying to send her a signal from somewhere.
That's how I took it, is that it was a signal as opposed to an actual real helicopter put in, but that's actually a very clever little thing.
Okay, now I don't know what your wife is talking about.
Isn't she amazing?
Thank
you, honey.
Oh, I thought maybe she was saying that you looked like somebody who just got named.
She's being sweet.
Is
she's
she
saying that I'm sexy?
Is that because she had a near-death experience tonight? I can't wait to talk about that tomorrow night.
She's funny.
Yeah. So apparently, yeah. Apparently, Mandy got repelled in the same way that young lady did last week.
Mm-hmm.
And she went spiraling to the creek. And nobody's going to know what we're talking about, but that's okay. So you sent some screenshots. Let's go ahead and take a look at these. I don't know.
Let's just mention a couple of things first that I think are very intriguing, and you give me your reaction. Of course, I'm substantially older, so I remember when TV shows really were in black and white, and then they came out with the in color, on shows. And what amazes me is that most of the time when shows try to copy that, they simply zero out the chroma. They cut the saturation and turn a color picture to black and white. These are excellently done. I mean, they're magnificently done. They, as people have said, they've used the exact cameras. They're using the same special effects. I mean, that attention to detail, I think, is what makes it so interesting. They not only copy from a bunch of different shows, but they really do it. And as a filmmaker myself, I admire all those little things and all the details that they put into it, because that's what makes it great. I mean, that's why we're talking about it as our, 1,000 other people who are putting out things trying to guess through the layers, because they've done such a good job of making it more than, oh, here's this cute little sitcom story.
Right.
They've made it incredibly dense. And what they pulled from, one of the biggest things is, Twilight Zone. They've got a real Twilight Zone feel, and that was always one of my favorite shows. 50 years after Twilight Zone, people are still stealing plots from them. And there's a real element to that whenever someone finds out that there's something wrong here. They really, really do that creepy Twilight Zone feel.
Yeah. And there's been talk about one episode of the Twilight Zone being very much kind of like this WandaVision, and that was one where they had a sentient. Well, of course he was sentient. He was a child, but
yeah, Billy Mumy, who was the actor, he was actually played Will Robinson in Lost in Space, the original.
Is that who that was? That little kid was.
Yeah.
Okay, but that. So we were talking about the helicopter, and so there was a similar moment where he turned a guy into one of those little Jack-in-the-Box boxes. And if you think about it, if she actually turned that helicopter into a toy, that's kind of the same level creepy, because she probably killed whoever was in that helicopter, knowingly or not.
And in that episode of the Twilight Zone, what was so cool was all the villagers around felt that same sense of being trapped, and they were so afraid to say anything against him, because if they disturbed his sense of what he wanted, he would whisk them out to the cornfield, which meant, he would basically kill them, turn them into something, and you could just have this image of all these mutated, destroyed people out in the cornfield somewhere. And I think when they do the thing like Agnes and Herb afraid to say, something wrong, it's very reminiscent of that episode.
Yeah, and that makes me think about we talking about the level of Wanda's power. So last week we had talked a little bit about Vision and whether or not he needs the Mind Stone to exist, and we're just going by what Brent Banner said about not really, that there was more Vision there than not. Though we can't really discount the fact. I mean, it's one of those convoluted things where, obviously he was brought to life at a point with the Mind Stone. But one thing I didn't think about was Wanda and where she got her powers. And I can't remember. I know that Strucker gave her and her brother Pedro powers through, was it the Tesseract that they got it? So I have been seeing some people put forth a theory that that Wanda's powers actually taps into all the stones. Yes.
And the fact that her power has that red feel, that's also the same thing that they used in, I can't remember the stone it was, in Thor, where the stone infected his girlfriend there, and it sort of took over her.
Oh yeah.
It has that same type feel. The special effects are the exact same thing that she uses, or that they used in that movie. So yes, there's the possibility she taps into all of them. There's also the thing where in the book she's supposedly Magneto's daughter. So this is I think their segue to bring the X-Men into the fold as well.
Yeah. So I think I heard somewhere that Paul Bettany said that when they pitched the idea of WandaVision to him, that the two main sources for this would be the WandaVision or the Vision Scarlet Witch miniseries, 12-issue miniseries, and House of M.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, which is there's been theories also that this is how they're going to introduce the X-Men to the Marvel universe. How exactly, I'm not sure, but I guess if she could take them out, she could start them too. Yeah, and trying to remember back that it's interesting because Sony had not, or Marvel had not acquired Sony
Fox
at that point. And so when they came up with the origin story, they not only could not mention Magneto because obviously he belonged to Fox at that point.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't even mention mutants. So that's why we don't have any at this point. It's all kind of fascinating, but I it says something about Wanda that with her having the ability to tap into each of the power of each of the stones, not the stones themselves because they've obviously been destroyed, but that makes her kind of a walking infinity gauntlet.
Which taps into the commercial that they did this episode, find the goddess inside.
Yeah.
That's really amping her description.
And it makes sense because she's showing powers of each one because there was a point where I think in episode 2 where Vision was starting to say something that was making her uncomfortable, and or the also at the time of the dude in the beehive or the beekeeper suit coming out of the gutter, and she said no, and she just rewound everything. So she was obviously tapping into the time stone at that point.
And she is the goddess of this universe. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but I thought it was fascinating. But if you look at what she can do consciously, it's still quite limited. I mean, in the first episode, she couldn't even it wasn't like she could just, wave her hand and make a dinner. She couldn't even get the chicken right. She took it too far and burned it, then backed it up and had eggs. And so, I thought it was kind of interesting that here she is that powerful and yet so not conscious of everything that she could do. But of course,
if she's in that place and doesn't realize she's there and doesn't realize what she's doing,
right,
as well as whatever outside influence on her, that sort of makes sense that she's growing in power as it goes.
Right. But at the same time, she is aware that she has magical powers.
Right.
And they're also aware, and this is the weird thing to me. So you cover up, so Vision, he puts on a human face to go outside because they know that androids are not typical. But at the same time, everybody's calling him Vision.
Right.
Even at the workplace, his boss is calling him Vision.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who's named Vision? I was thinking when I saw this that maybe he would have another name.
Well, they have this wonderful little thing where everybody is accepting of these strange things, and that was definitely shown in episode 3 where he picks up the doctor and runs at super speed, and the doctor's okay with it. Or when Geraldine sees sees that she's pregnant, that Wanda is pregnant, and just suddenly, you're pregnant, and she's seen her just like a couple of days earlier, and she wasn't, and just accepts it immediately. So people are, when they're around them, they're forced to accept the fact that there's something there as if it's nothing.
Yeah. Now I don't really have a theory on what's going on here, but since you mentioned it, and we're just going over stuff. Everybody's got videos out,
right?
So let me bring up something that I'm not seeing anybody else talk about in any of these videos. What is up with Vision and super speed?
Well, I think he already always had that to a point, although that wasn't one of his big things. But he references that he's got it, and they used it in the first episode when he was working in the office.
Right, and he was doing the calculations real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think too much of it at that point, because I'm just thinking, well, he is an android.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he can do the computations that fast. It was a little odd to see him moving that fast. But I'm trying to think, did he ever show super speed in Avengers Age of Ultron, Captain America Civil War, or Avengers Infinity War?
Aside from the fact that he ended up appearing in places very quickly, you never actually saw that. And I think part of the problem was they were afraid of making him Superman by just giving him almost unlimited powers, because he can fly, he's super strong, he can shoot, bullets out of beams out of his forehead, like Superman can put them out of his eyes. So maybe they just didn't want to make him too overly powerful. Yeah. Because face it, when he's fighting Captain America, he, or any of the other human Avengers, he should be able to just wipe them out in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that came to my mind was that it's not like Scarlet Witch hasn't had other speedsters in her life.
Right. And in fact, her child now is one of them. One of the children grows up to be, a speedster, sort of absorbing Quicksilver's powers.
Yeah, like Pedro.
Right. And, Pietro.
Or Pietro, yeah. Now, at some point, because now I started reading comic books in the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Just as soon as I could start reading, there was a hero, Robert Frank, the Wizard.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, well, when I first, here we go. In the modern age, the Wizard reappears as an aging hero who has married fellow superhero Miss America. The Wizard encounters and briefly serves with the Avengers, who aid him in the controlling of his son, Nuclo. He reunited with Nuclo but suffered a heart attack. At the end of this adventure, the Wizard erroneously believes himself to be the father of the mutant twins, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. And I believe they thought that too, because I sort of remember those stories where they treated him as such. And don't know exactly, but now the reason why I say that is because they did have, I believe it was the first episode, there was some sort of statue or something that was kind of a tribute to Wizard.
Mm-hmm.
So they are aware of that.
The all the stuff in the background is pretty impressive.
Yeah,
all those details, which is why again, as you say, so many people are doing these kind of things and picking up on things, and it's fascinating to see where they'll go with this. But yes, I've heard that theory as well.
So is there a connection to Wizard? And I think Quicksilver. I don't know. Are they? How are? We just really don't know their parents. But then again, if you look at the origin story, if they really did get their powers from the Tesseract, I don't know that it would matter.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It just seemed like in this third episode, we saw so much of the Vision using super speed, which is not something I normally associate with him.
Right.
That it just seems strange.
Well,
from carrying the doctor on his back to his coming in the door, and she knocked over that piece of fruit, and he whirled around and caught it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, why have we never seen, if he does that so casually, why have we never seen it before?
Unless she is creating this in him. I mean, if she has, if she's pulled in the ability to create him or bring him back to life, then she can infuse some of the powers. And one of the powers she would put in there, hi Brandy, by the way. She would. That's one of our newest authors on Academy Arts Press. Nice to see you, Brandy.
Really? Cool.
Yes. Great book, and she's actually doing a couple of things with Mandy too. So look for them on academyartspress.com. But one of the things that people are saying is that in WandaVision, how does she have her children? Obviously, she, Vision and her can't copulate. He is an android being that way. And I believe the concept is that she created the children out of her own powers, which means that she can create life. She can bring Vision back from the dead, which means that she really is expanding her power range, which is pretty amazing for the show.
And not really even being conscious of it. That's the really scary part of this.
Or barely conscious of it would be the thing, because she does know enough to throw Monica Rambeau outside of the world.
Yeah.
Which raises another thing, by the way. Did you notice that when she goes back to the outside world, she's still wearing her 70s costume, which means that even outside of this world that Wanda has created or is inhabiting, the stuff that's in there can now leak out into the outside world, which would make it so much more dangerous. It's not just, whatever happens inside this village.
Well, unless Monica went in with that. Because we've been seeing at the end credits that it looks like Sword is monitoring what's going on in there, and that's a question. How are they monitoring what's happening inside that sphere like that?
Mm-hmm. Well, remember that when Geraldine first appeared in the last episode, she had a different outfit and she had a different look, which means that she had to change, as did everybody.
Yeah.
As Wanda changed to the new decade.
Yeah.
So I would doubt they came in with a certain costume. I think, sort of they're pulling it, they're adapting to her.
That's true. And it also did not seem that she was fully aware of what was going on through the whole thing. I mean, she all of a sudden blurted out, Ultron killed Pietro, but then realized she had made a mistake. And that was really you got to give them credit. That was when you saw the way Wanda looked at her, that was creepy.
Yep. And again, as a filmmaker, everything about this is really, really well done. The subtlety of when they're leaking in these breakdown moments, and the acting and the directing is just extremely good. I'm very impressed by it.
Yeah. And so yeah, and we've got the other characters that we didn't see as much this time, but we did see a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Dottie,
man, there, and she's been unusually conscious. She's had her moments of being unusually conscious, like when she confronted Wanda in episode 2,
right,
and said, "I don't trust you." And so Dottie is one to watch. And I don't, and I do believe the theories that there is a supernatural element coming up, because I do believe that Mephisto is going to be a player.
Ralph, Agnes's husband, who she keeps referring to.
Yeah,
and Ralph feels better. Ralph looks better in the darkness, is what she says.
Oh yeah.
In this,
she keeps dropping all these lines about the devil. The devil's in the details. Yeah, maybe it is Ralph, and it'd be funny. But just for those that are not familiar, that might go back and watch this live stream and aren't familiar with how Marvel views, it's not like you have one Satan in the Marvel universe. You have a realm, underworld realm there are probably about 8 different characters that rule each realm. Mephisto is just one. And so yeah, and I guess they have different levels of power and influence, but Mephisto would be the one to be looking at this point. And now is Agatha Harkness, or I'm convinced Agnes is Agatha Harkness.
I agree.
And but now, is she trying to protect Wanda, or is she an agent of Mephisto? Is she being manipulated by Mephisto? That we don't know. So we don't know. And then Dottie, which one is, they both are pretty conscious of it. And then what does the gentleman that cut through the fence,
Herb,
thank you. I wonder what he knows.
Well, my take based on this one, which could be entirely wrong, and I guess we'll know as the season goes, is that Wanda was led to create this universe, but it's her power that's being there. And whether she was led by Agnes with Ralph or somebody else there, I think they are on one side of it, and Hydra, because they keep dropping the Hydra in all the commercials,
right?
Which are obviously very, very important, and in some ways the best way to communicate a message to Wanda and make her feel that everything is okay, because that's what all the commercials seem to be doing. Ignore time, because all of them have some element of time in there. Calm down, everything's okay. We can make your life better by staying in this little universe. So they're sort of, keeping her in there. If you look at the way, and you can pull up that image I sent you, that screen grab of Agnes and Herb by the wall. Can you put that up?
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see.
Again, there are so many people doing these, but I picked up a couple of things that I don't think I have seen on anybody else's stuff yet. Not that one yet. Although that one's interesting for a couple of things. Well, it's up. You want me to tell you? Oh, there we are. Okay. If you notice over here, this is Herb and this is Agnes. And a couple of interesting things. One, if you notice the background, That is so clearly a painted background, as opposed to the reality of everything else. If you always look outside of a certain point, everything is clearly fake past a certain point. Now, Marvel doesn't have to do that. They could shoot in a neighborhood and, show a real background, but they purposely are trying to do, a fake background back there, which again says that the village has a border. There was a great show in the 60s called The Prisoner. You should watch it. It's great. Basically, it was, the guy who played secret agent back in the 50s or early 60s, I think, and Patrick McGowan, and he wrote a series called The Prisoner where he was in this fake village that everything was controlled. And this borrows some of that. But another thing, too, is that these two characters are doing the opposite of what Sword is doing. They're conspiring in some ways, to sort of keep her going. So I think Herb is sort of on the side of Agnes here. And one could make a point that, he cut through the wall, obviously symbolic breaking through the wall, but he cut through the wall, getting into Wanda's place. He's trying to knock it down just a little bit, but not destroy it. And I think Agnes covers up when he tries to tell her something. But I think those two are on the same side. They're not just random villagers. That's my take there. You want to throw up another picture there, and I'll point out some other things that I thought were sort of cool.
Which way did you want me to go?
Whichever. Okay,
like
this I thought was interesting. And again, a lot of people have talked about it. When Monica gets thrown out of the village, this is the outside, which tells us basically that it really is a real village and not just a total mental construct. And one of the things I noticed, anyway, you can zoom in on that just a little bit more, those images below the sign.
I don't know that I can.
Okay. Well, what I find is interesting, if you look to the one, over to your left there.
Over here?
Yeah, it's a hand with a beam of power around it.
Okay.
Which I think is sort of cool, because that basically says, something about what they do. It's clearly a Wanda thing. And if you look at the one on the far right, it's an eye that says "we're watching." I couldn't read it very clearly, but I think the left one says something about the Brotherhood of Industry. That's the Westview one. The middle one is an Eagles Club, which sort of says military to me, or it could reference, Nazi or Hydra.
Okay.
But the left one, three of them say international, which is sort of funny because they make such a point of it being such a small town. But they all have, these. I don't think those symbols are just accidents. You've got the hand of power. You've got the eye saying "we're watching," and I think this is sort of cool. So that's why I picked that up. I thought that was fun.
Let me throw this out there. All right.
Sure.
So we got a commercial this week for Hydra soap.
Yes.
Is it possible that Hydra has Wanda in some sort of chamber, and they're generating this reality? I don't know.
I thought that in the beginning.
Formulating it. It seems to me that she's being manipulated.
Yes, absolutely. And she's being manipulated by Hydra, because I think the commercials say that pretty clearly. I don't think she's in a chamber, because at the end of this one, we actually saw the boundaries.
Right.
Where all the
Sword
people are there. It's, somehow they've manipulated her into sealing off this village, as you said, sort of a dome, not in a physical dome, but a sort of a power field around this village, and swords on the outside. I heard someone say that the voice on the radio in the first episode was Jimmy Woo, who was the agent from Ant-Man, who is now an agent of S.W.O.R.D. So that was sort of cool. So I think you have Hydra, excuse me, and Agnes creating this or perpetuating this. Agnes has her own thing, and then S.W.O.R.D. is trying to figure out what it is. Some have said, that maybe they did this to get the children that Wanda's going to create.
Yeah, and I do think that's a driving force, because if you go back to Age of Ultron, when we first have the Avengers storming the castle where Strucker's keeping Wanda and Pietro, he didn't send them. You would think the thing to do would, all right, you've got these two incredibly powered individuals, why not send them out to fight the Avengers? But he didn't do that, and he was even willing to surrender before doing that. And I think the objective there was to use them to create more weapons,
right.
Create more mutants, even though they couldn't really use the term back then. But maybe even a super soldier type program. So, and
you want to move to another picture here?
You look at this series, then remember back in episode 1, we've got Agnes really pushing the idea of Wanda and having children. That
or
really,
the children, which was sort of a creepy.
Oh line. Yeah, that was creepy from episode 2. So there's been this kind of driving force for Wanda to create, and I guess in whatever fashion necessary. If they don't have the Tesseract, but she has the powers of it, then that's the route they go. So I don't know how is it that they've gotten such control over her. I guess what we need to know is what happened between the end of Endgame and right now. And was there a point that she did she somehow end up in the clutches of Hydra?
I think we're going to see that. I think she had a breakdown when the Avengers sort of all drifted apart. Now that all that is over, and she's left without anyone. She's lost her brother. She's lost her. She's lost Vision.
Right.
The world probably still thinks she's evil to some point because of the incident, that started in Infinity Wars, or Captain America.
And she has to deal with whether it was, it was clearly accidental, but she was responsible for the deaths of several people.
And her home village is destroyed. So I think that made her a little susceptible, and I think Hydra stepped in, and I think she was sort of seduced in further by Agnes and Herb. That's my sort of concept there, but I think Agnes and Herb are not really working with Hydra. I think they have their own agenda, which might be sort of interesting. Maybe wrong, but I'd love to see that.
Right. And this could be Mephisto working his way to do a power grab. So we could have competing villains here in Hydra and in Mephisto.
I would think so. And the nice thing from a fanboy point of view is that because she can bring her powers outside of this village, it's a chance to bring Vision back, not only in this, her self-contained village, but, her children who become members of the Young Avengers, and Vision can exist outside of this. So it's her way to reintroduce, which is sort of cool. If you go to one of the other slides, I want to point out something else I don't think anybody else has seen or has mentioned. We've seen that one. I thought this was funny.
This one?
Either one.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go back to this one because this one's really got me curious. I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't pay attention to this, so
I just find it funny, all the details that they do about animals and everything. We have the swan, the stork, and everything like that.
Yeah.
That she talks about Mr. Haddocks, and I don't think that's the way that the closed caption is spelled Haddocks, but of course haddocks are fish, and she comes in wearing fish pants, which I just sort of thought was funny, and that's the beak of the stork about to eat the fish thing. So again, with Marvel, you just don't think that anything's that random.
I did not even catch that. I mean, I remember watching the stork peck at her pants, but
Mr. Haddocks and the fish. And if you
which again raises more questions, because with the stork walking around, you clearly see Wanda try to get rid of it, but she clearly can't seem to affect the stork.
Mm-hmm.
So what's at play there?
Well, it's inevitable that she's going to have a kid, and that's sort of cool. I loved when the stork retreated into the picture, into the painting, so that Monica Geraldine didn't at first notice the stork. I thought that was very clever. But she tries to do it, and it was sort of cool too, because they show her power with the red smoke, which is exactly how they would do an I Dream of Jeannie power or a Bewitched power in the 70s, as opposed to the type of, CGI effect that they do in Avengers. They showed it with just a poof of red smoke, red being her color, which I thought was sort of fun.
Yeah. Let's see. What was this other one? The
other one, there's Dottie. And again, you sort of look that everything has a meaning. We've got the twins in the light and lamppost there, as well as,
I had not noticed
that. One of them is whispering something to the other, which is sort of cool. But if you can see, and I don't know if this means anything, but if you look in the picture on the wall there, it's sort of either a stork or a dragon. And then if you look at the other lamp in the far back, it's also some sort of stork or dragon. I realize this isn't very clear, but I thought that was sort of cool. So it makes me think that at some point, Dottie has some power that's a little bit interesting, or Dottie has more than just the normal villager.
Oh shoot! I wish I had thought about grabbing some screenshots myself, because I do know there's some important information on that.
The cover says something about 2 fire hydrants.
Oh, there you go.
And the way they shot it, it looks like 2 fire hydra is in town.
Yeah.
And the 2 could refer to the babies, but also just another, throwback to Hydra, which is sort of fun.
Yeah. And this guy, I don't know much about him, except he was the guy that got fired.
Mm-hmm.
The first episode.
But seems to have bounced back well.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't know he was married to Dottie. And boy, and you're right, man, they so much attention to detail. I was watching a video on that actress that's playing Dottie, and apparently she's been in a lot of science fiction
Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She played Anya, the
Prior,
witch.
I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but I have seen her before. I thought she looked familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And
she played a witch. I think it's sort of funny that they would cast her that. I don't think that was random.
No. So they're playing with everything. I mean, they're not just all right. So we see all these story elements in here, but then we also see them throwing in different elements, harkening back to the actual sitcoms, and then I mean, how much thinking had to go into each one of these episodes?
I would think this has been a major project because it was so risky. And actually, can you take that picture down now?
Sure.
I think what made it so risky, of course, was the fact that people love the Marvel Universe, and you've just come off something as serious and as gripping as Endgame, where you actually lost some of your major characters. So this becomes a risk by saying, oh, yeah, we're going to follow with a sitcom. And they really needed to infuse it with enough detail and enough mystery that it becomes the next Lost or Game of Thrones thing where you have talking about every episode. And clearly they've done that. I think if they just played it, oh, we'll do this cute little sitcom and then eventually it'll lead to a mystery, without all these layers, it might have fallen flat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I do think that their attention to detail is definitely outstanding. I mean,
yeah,
even
from the props, even if you look at the pictures on the wall in her place, there's a couple of things that there is that little picture behind her in Wanda's room, where actually, if you look at it, it looks like an X, which again could be, the beginning of an X-Men type thing, or it looks like a soaring bird of some sort, which again, they have all these motifs like that. They have the animals. You see giraffes everywhere. You see bunnies. All of that sort of is pretty cool. And again, I think they'll play with it. I think they're having so much fun at Marvel creating this, and they're just going to keep packing it in for every episode.
Yeah, and I think it's cool too for the actors because they really have gotten an opportunity to step up.
Oh yeah,
especially if you think about Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany, who are proving that they are quite exceptional actors. But I don't know that you would really pick that up from their sub stories in major Avengers movies.
Right. One of the first things I saw him in was the Heath Ledger's A Knight's Tale.
Oh yeah,
where he plays Geoffrey Chaucer and steals the movie when he's on. And obviously, great with comedy. And of course, he voiced Jarvis through all the Iron Man movies.
Right.
But he just really does a great job. But I'm so impressed with her when she breaks character, or when she breaks the illusion and realizes something's wrong. Her looks, that moments of hesitation are just fantastic.
And I was noticing, even in conveying, even with just a facial expression, conveying the joy or the fact that she was so happy about having children.
Right.
Like when Vision takes the doctor home and they walk out the door, and then they do she just shows this once. She doesn't say a word, just this one kind of, she looks like she's almost glowing, kind of smile, and that shows that she's just thrilled to be pregnant.
Pure parental love. The expression said it all, in just a nice, wonderfully subtle way.
Yeah.
And this is from Mary Kate and Ashley's little sister. Who would have thought?
Oh yeah, and I think I underestimated her because of that. Thinking, when I heard that it was someone from the Olsens playing in the Marvel movies, and she does look like her sisters a little bit,
right?
And so I was thinking, man, really, do we really? How good is she going to be as a Scarlet Witch? And it turns out, well, absolutely fabulous.
Again, Marvel and their casting is amazing.
It has been spot on. I never really would have known how to cast the Vision, but really, Paul Bettany is just an inspired choice.
And when you think about it, they must have known all the way back to the original Iron Man.
Yeah, I wonder if they,
Jarvis couldn't have substituted another actor in there if Jarvis is supposedly the intellectual part of Vision.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that they did have know. Even Bettany hadn't always known what his future is. Right. He said in an interview that they called him in. Well, there was supposed to be. It was when he kind of revealed that there was supposed to be a scene on the end of Endgame where Wanda pulls his body out of something. I don't know if it was a morgue or a tomb or what, but he was disappointed because he didn't get the pay that he would have gotten if he was in that movie. But then he said he got called into the office and he thought they were just going to tell him that it was over. And then he found out that they were planning this WandaVision. They pitched this show at him, and which was awesome. But they now as a big fan of the Vision, I'm trying not to panic too much. I keep hoping when this is over, he's still going to be alive.
Oh, I'm sure of it.
And
no doubt.
And that he and Wanda will have some kind of future with the next generation of Avengers, because they've really not had much time to shine. Now, I do think,
if I could mention one more thing about that was really cool. If you remember at the Avengers in the end of the Infinity Wars, when Vision is killed by Thanos, he turns gray. The color bleeds out, and then they start this in WandaVision. It's black and white, and then eventually he gets color, into it. So it's sort of like he is making that transition from death to life as they go through.
Yeah. And I wondered how much, when that first happened, I thought, was this kind of an homage to the point, there was a point where Vision was lacking color in the comic books.
I'm sure it's all of that. Yeah, absolutely.
And, but I was getting ready to go somewhere.
Sorry.
And let's see if I can pull it back together. This is what I hate about getting old. I can't walk across the floor without losing my train of thought anymore. But we were talking about
Vision coming back in for the Avengers. You thought that you were hoping that they had a life beyond Wanda, and Vision had a life beyond, this series.
I remember now. I just I don't know that this series is going to end well for them. I think we could be heading for a cliffhanger.
Oh, I think it's going to end immediately with
leading
the inflow into Doctor Strange.
This is setting up the multiverse of
Absolutely.
madness.
It's going to end on an emotional, oh my God moment, and that's what's going to draw people into Doctor Strange too.
Yeah, I think that movie now looks like it's going to be Doctor Strange trying to save Wanda.
Mm-hmm. And probably trying to save everything.
Oh yeah,
her powers expand past this village.
Yeah, and hopefully that means that because when they do these Marvel movies, they usually have a couple of superheroes that aren't being billed. It goes all the way back to like Iron Man, and he would have like Black Widow in his movie, or so I'm hoping the Vision will be a character in the multiverse of madness, as hopefully he'll still be alive and he'll want to try to save Wanda.
Well, Kevin Feige is brilliant for the way he's negotiated and just planned out a decade worth of stories and had them interconnect. And I am sure that every movie is going to introduce someone else.
So I wonder how much of the blueprint for the next decade has been set.
Oh, as far as I understand, I think they've already done, phase 4, phase 5. I think they've even got concepts of phase 6 already out there. It's going to take a while to put that together. Obviously, unfortunately, the pandemic has slowed lots of things down and pushed it, but they're introducing everything all there. And I can picture this amazing, project board, stretching over walls where they're going to put different things. And once they bought Fox, how they're going to reintroduce the Fantastic Four and X-Men into this. If I remember correctly in the comics, does Reed Richards deliver the babies? Wanda's babies? Is it him or is it Doctor Strange that does? One of them does.
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, looks like we're 3 minutes out.
Yeah, we've killed an hour. I'm sure once we see what's coming up Friday, we'll have some more stuff for next week.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, having a blast with this show. Absolutely. Now it sets an awfully high bar for Falcon and the Winter Soldier,
which I believe is probably going to be a more traditional type story,
right?
But it also sets up, from what I understand, the next Spider-Man 2, which goes into the multiverse,
right?
Which is how they're going to bring Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire and their Spider-Man into that movie.
I have not.
They're appearing in there.
Yeah, I've not seen any trailers yet for Captain America or
Spider-Man 3.
No, Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Right.
I wonder if it's going to be kind of a espionage thriller, maybe touching back to things like 24 and stuff like that.
I think so. From what I understand, and I don't know where I heard this because so many rumors going about, but I think the government comes up with a character to take the place of Captain America, and he actually turns out to be a bad guy. So they're going to figure out a way to, not only salvage Captain America's reputation and perhaps assume the mantle that was given to Falcon, but also, work that in. And I think that's a very timely message about propaganda and everything else too, which is sort of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I can make a little pitch here in our last minute.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Dark Wilderness and Other Stories. If you like stories of supernatural and suspense, it's a collection of short stories written by me. A number of them have won awards. A number of them have been, appears in some international plays. Plays of mine called Exquisite Anxieties, published out of South Africa and London. So it's fun if you like sort of interesting, weird, cool stories. Dark Wilderness and Other Stories, available at academyarts.com. Sorry about the pitch, but why not?
No, by all means. Next time, if next time you're on here, pitch it at the beginning. That way we can catch everybody. I don't know how long they're going to hold on with us just jabbering, but I tell you what, I don't care. I do these things even if nobody tuned in, because it's just fun.
Well, I had fun. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of it. And I realize I'm not as attractive as Mandy, but you'll have her back for the next show.
Who could be, right? We'll
Thanks,
give her
buddy.
that. All right. Well, have a good week, Vin. Did anybody that has watched this and is still watching it? Hope you're having a great week. And we definitely will be back. I'll definitely be back next Tuesday. Vin, you're welcome to join in if you want.
I'm trying to finish my novel.
Okay.
And that depending on how much work I get done, I've sort of given myself a deadline of February 15th to finish it. It's 300 pages. It's a horror suspense. It's based on a screenplay of mine that's one like far, but turning it into a novel. So let's hope.
Yeah. Well, no pressure, but you got no open invitation, and so whatever, however it goes for you. So again, folks, glad that you tuned in, and we will see you next week. Until then, peace.